A very warm welcome from my side. I'm very happy to be invited and to present this paper. It's actually the last paper for my dissertation, and as you can see in the screen, it's a preliminary version. So you're really the first ones to hear about that project of mine, Attention Economics of Instagram Stars, and I'm very curious about your ideas and comments later on. So let's get right into it and get to the questions. What are social media stars really? When I started my PhD, that was very unknown in the beginning. So I had to talk a lot about what are social media stars, what are influencers. Today, they're broadly known. So there's a short introduction just to get everyone on the same page. They're broadly known as influencers, which is more of the marketing characteristic of those stars influencing people to buy specific products. In the beginning, they were referred to in the scientific literature as micro celebrities. They're not that micro anymore, so I guess that's why we kind of dropped the name here. Creators, because they're creating their own content and put that content online on specific platforms, and that's pretty much across different platforms. So that's why you also refer to them as online stars, because a lot of them are not just on one platform like YouTube, but on various platforms. And the most popular ones in westernized countries are YouTube, Instagram, and now recently TikTok. Of course, we have more than that. We have Twitch and so on. And the main difference, there are a lot of differences to traditional stars or stars of traditional media, but one of the main differences is that we have no traditional gatekeepers. Traditional in the sense of there's no editor, or you have a music producer, you have to convince of your content, but you just basically put that content online yourself. But we'll see later on if there are no gatekeepers in the market. So not the traditional ones, but we'll see if there are really no gatekeepers in the market. And I brought some examples. So Lily Pons, and actually I had to look them up too. So those are the most earning ones. So in case of income, those are those with the highest income on Instagram, and that would be Lily Pons with 41 million followers, and she gets an estimated almost $143,000 US per post. So just to show you how much money is in that market. So if you want to advertise your product with her, that would be the money you have to invest. And M.Sc King, you see on the left, I guess he lets money magically appear in this picture or video he put on Instagram. So there's a lot of money in the market, and that's why it's interesting to look at it from an economic point of view. And getting into the scientific part of superstars and economics of superstars, I just want to introduce you to the theory on superstars, because there is a lot from an economic point of view. And there are three seminal papers which are quoted mostly in that context. And there are more theoretical papers, but those are the seminal papers. Rosen, Adler, and McDonald are published in the American Economic Review. And you can see there's a lot of empirical evidence in music, sports, film and arts, trying to test those theories. And last but not least, of course, in our context is social media. And we did a paper on YouTube and upload behavior on YouTube. And there's a paper from Jung and Nuesch also on YouTube data and popularity, which is quite interesting. And in this paper, I want to do a crossover of two different parts of economic theories we have. So the superstar theory and attention economics. And attention economics is nothing really new in the digital age. We already had that with Simon talking about that in the 1970s. Information consumes the attention of its recipients. So attention is a scarce resource. And of course, in online market, that increases a lot. So it's not about information access anymore, so going to a library and finding information, but it's about information overload and finding, I put that in air quotes, the right information and proper information today, and kind of filter what you want and what you need. So attention becomes even more scarce in that digital environment. And now getting to social media and gaining attention in social media, that's actually the main gatekeeper we have here. So every one of us could film a YouTube video today. And I don't know, maybe there are some social media stars among the crowd, I don't know. But most of us will not be super successful and earn thousands of money with that one video today, I guess. Because the problem is to find that audience and actually gain that attention, and that's the main gatekeeper. And there we have the role of recommender services that push specific contents and lead the attention of consumers through the platforms. And we have a small paper on that, conceptual paper on that, we just published the discussion paper version recently. So if you're interested in recommender systems, that would be my recommendation. No marketing here. And let's do the crossover of the two different theories. So attention economics and stars in attention economics. And we started in our paper, in our last paper, and I want to kind of build on that with audience building, because you really need to build your own audience as a social media stars. And there we differentiate between analytic differentiation. It's an analytic differentiation. So it happens at the same time, but still you can analytically divide the two effects. So the first effect is audience attraction, the eye catcher, the first attraction of attention you really want to get, the initial stimulus for the consumer and for the recipient. And then it's audience maintenance. So you kind of maintain your audience, you create a long-term relationship and build consumption capital. So how do you build consumption capital? There are three different ways according to Adler, and Adler is one of the Economics of Superstar papers, as I introduced to you. So the first one would be the consumption itself. You're consuming the content itself, and you build specific knowledge on the star, his or her content, and you kind of get to know it, and it's basically consumption capital. You have the capital out of the consumption. And then you have communication about that content, so communality effects. You talk with your friends or family, and you get to know even more stuff, more information about that star, about that content, and everything around that. And the last one is media coverage, so the availability of that content, where you can access it. So you see it's the same star, for example, on YouTube and on Instagram, and you find information everywhere, and you can build consumption capital from that. And that's both connected. So in both parts, attention, audience attraction and audience maintenance are both built on scarce attention. The problem is in both cases, you have the problem of scarce attention. You want to attract it, you want to maintain it. And the second part is basically superstar theory, which is very well researched with all those empirical papers. It kind of builds on that, and that's most of that part I'm referring to is Adler. And that's pretty much well researched, but the first part is not very well researched. That's what Adler kind of calls an initial advantage. So one person has an initial advantage, and you want to research that initial advantage of that person. And then Adler refers to a kind of snowball effect from that point that the person snowballs into superstardom. And I want to focus on that first part, which is not that deeply analyzed yet. And those are my empirical variables for that. So you see for the audience attraction, I have this body exposure, I call it. And that's why it's also called in the title, sex sells ? Because it's basically about nudity. Maybe you attract people's first attention just with some kind of body exposure and some degree of body exposure. And then I have the traditional ones, so to say, with building consumption capital by just a number of posts. You have so many posts, the consumers can consume that content and build specific knowledge. We have popularity measurements, so the followers, people who think alike, you have people who follow the same star, you communicate and can have comments and likes and have those popularity measurements. And then the last one with media coverage, that will be multi-homing, so how many channels do those stars have? And the main research question in the end for that paper is, does body exposure drive Instagram success, and is there a difference between male and female content with that? And of course, when we talk about success, we have to talk about different kinds of success, and I kind of want to introduce you to the general ways of how to make money on social media, and then lastly come to that part I'm using for that paper, but maybe to get everyone on the same page, how can you actually earn money in that market? And there are platform immanent systems. So the first one is a share of advertising revenues. That's, for example, on YouTube. So you get paid by the platform, so platform immanent within the platform. You get paid by the platform for people consuming your videos and consuming advertising with those videos. So pay-per-click or pay-per-view. There are direct donations or tips. You can actually, with Twitch, for example, you can tip the person, and you can do that on the website to donate money if you like the content. Then there are payment barriers to access the content, either a flat rate, or you can eat, or a la carte, just pay-per-view. That would be an example with Patreon. And the latter two both would be for OnlyFans, for example. And then there are external payments, own sponsored content, own brands. Very good example is WeChat, Chinese example, and Taobao. So you have a very close connection from the social media page WeChat and the store behind that, Taobao. And you basically that's basically a marketing strategy to market your products. Instagram has those, goes in that direction too, but not that strongly, because there's not one shop behind that, but you can connect your own small shop, and it's not that strongly connected yet. We'll see how that turns out later on, but it's happening, yeah. But the main income for Instagram stars are ad-financed or sponsored content. So you get paid to promote products for other people, and most of those stars, and that's actually the influencing part. So you actually have this marketing influencer part of Instagram, and that's how a lot of those stars earn the money, and that's why it's also called, or the measurement is also per picture, because they get paid per picture. And I want to just show you how that works, so you get an idea. In the middle, you have, I think you can see my mouse here. In the middle, you have Instagram as a platform. Then you have the social media, the Instagram stars, and you have advertisers, and they're outside of the market. Those advertisers are just interested in marketing their products, and they try to find a star to place their products or services on Instagram. And that's basically the revenue stream here. That's the income payment the stars receive from those advertisers. And that's what I have as income data for those stars. But there are also other advertisers, of course, and those are the ones who place advertising directly on Instagram. So you have ads within your feed. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about those advertisers. I'm talking about those advertisers, here's number ones, who directly pay Instagram stars for their services. And that's actually my dependent variable. So I have estimated price per picture, and I have the quantity of postings per week. And that's how I calculate the revenue per week. And I take for the analysis, I take the logged values of those to have symmetrically distributed residuals for the regression. Okay, so more on the empirical analysis and what kind of sample, what kind of data am I using, what is happening here. I have 500 Instagram stars out of 5 categories, so 100 per category: fashion, fitness, food, music, photo, and art. Those are the most popular ones, also the best distinguishable ones. So, so you don't have double sampling of something. And the data I have, most of the data I withdraw from M.Sc.com, and that's actually an agency who helps those, I just quickly go back to the other slide, who helps those advertisers find a suitable star to promote their product. So they collect all the data and also estimate the prices for their customers. They estimate the cost per post, so that would cost you this and that, that many dollars to advertise a product with that star, and you can find a suitable star. And that's mainly where I get a lot of data from, and I used filters from M.Sc.com. I have stars with more than 15,000 followers, and I wanted them to have an email address, because I refer to them as the ones who are interested in business on Instagram. So a lot of, I'd say, external stars, actors, singers or something, they are not interested in actually business contact on Instagram. And that's how I want to make sure that there is business interest on Instagram. They put down their email address to be reachable by advertisers. And then I have panel data. So approximately every 10 days, because M.Sc.com doesn't always refresh the data every day. And after cleaning the data, it's approximately every 10 days. It's unbalanced panel data from January to June 2020. And we get to that later on, but just so you have an idea, it's almost 2% female content and 21% male content, and that's just the top ones. So we already see that there's a lot of female content in that sample. And then I created a subsample out of these, and that's actually only accounts with primarily female or male content. And I'll show you why I do that later on, just an explanation that I do that. And what does that focus mean? 50% or more female content means that there's a clear focus on that account on female content, or 50% or more male content means that they have clear focus on male content. That excludes accounts which are mixed. So they have male and female and just a mixture of everything, non-human accounts, which means pets or landscapes or stuff like that. And non-focus accounts, so they have a little bit of everything, like something here, something there, and don't really focus on one type of content. Coming to the coding, which is, of course, that's not provided by M.Sc. That's what I did manually, looking through the pictures and to take that body exposure. And of course, there's theoretical classification of nudity and sexual appeal. And there's a lot of literature on that. And I want to focus on partially clad out of those different categories, because there are no nude pictures on Instagram according to the community guidelines. And I don't want to differentiate between different sexual appeals. So I don't differentiate between a bikini or shorts or something like that. I basically code the body exposure, and I do that on the last 12 pictures per account. And I did it just once because it's very extensive work. So each picture was coded 0 or 1. 1 if it's 50% or more naked skin, excluding portraits, of course, because that would be a lot of naked skin, right? And all 50% or more focus on primary sexual characteristics. So even if it's covered up, you still have like, it's a covered bottom or breasts or something, but it's still 50% more focus on that, then it's still coded as a 1. Adding up to an ordinal variable with a range of 0, so there's no body exposure in the picture on the account, to 12, actually 12 nude pictures on the account. So you have a range of 0 to 12. How naked is that account? And I brought some examples. I can definitely show you afterwards if you're interested in the coding and how that worked. Also, the percentage of content and female, male, and so on is coded in my data, and I did that manually too. So one has to differentiate between sex and gender. So one is the biological, and the other one is the sexual identity or social identity. And of course, you cannot really observe the sexual identity of a person. You can basically say this is read as female, read as male, and also I did that in the last 12 pictures. So you cannot say anything more than that. It's basically observing what you can observe and if you can observe it. And I created 5 variables: female, male, mixed, ambivalent, and no identification. Female is clearly female features, 1 or more women. Male is clearly male, 1 or more men. Mixed is clearly male and female if there's more than one person in a picture. Ambivalent are sexual characteristics recognizable but not clearly attributable to a man or a woman, which means, for example, transvestites, and I actually have 2 in the sample. They have some pictures where that's the case. But it's very rare, so it's minimal. And no identification, there are no characteristics visible, so you have no sexual characteristics at all. That could be babies where you don't see it. Also, of course, people where you just don't see if it's a man or woman or any, you just don't see any characteristics. And you have landscapes or anything else where you don't have any human characteristics. And I calculate a percentage of content for all variables separately. And then you can say that for one account, you have 50% female content, 30% male content, and 20% no identification. And you actually see how much content is on that account for each sex. And I have, of course, the further variables. Those are basically from Hipsy.com. The number of posts, that's just the number of total uploads on the account. Multi-homing, I calculated that. How many channels do they have next to Instagram? So 0, they just have Instagram, or they have more than that, Facebook, Snapchat, an own website, and so on. The total number of followers, likes and comments, Hipsy calculates those also an average over the last 12 posts always, because it would bias your results a lot if you do that over the whole uploads, because the first pictures might have not too much likes, or you have one picture with a lot of likes, and that kind of screws over your data, because you actually want to know how popular are those people at the moment, and not all time, so to say, but how popular are the people within their recent posts, how much is going on. And then Hipsy provides the sex of the audience, percentage of male and female followers. Let's have a look into the data and kind of get to know the data a little bit. And I'll tell you a little bit about the just descriptive analysis and just to get to know the whole thing. Top 20 overall. And that's interesting because we have 11 music accounts within the top 20. So that's pretty popular. 5 fashion, 3 fitness, and 1 food account. It's 14 female content, so with focus on female content. 5 male and 1 mixed with male and female. The body exposure is on average between all of those 20, 3.3. And again, the highest would be 12, the lowest would be 0, right? So 3.3 is not very high. And in that case, we have a minimum of 0 and a maximum of 3. So in those top 20, there are 3 females with body exposure of 10. The top 10 per category. fashion, fitness, food, music, and photo. And you already see that there are a lot of females in here too. 8 female, 5 female, 5 female, 6 and 4. And as an explanation again for food, we have 5, 2, 1, and then 2 with no focus. And again, no focus is that I post everything a little bit. So some female pictures, some male pictures, some maybe if in a food account you can expect there is just food in the picture, and so on. There's actually the body exposure of 0, maximum is 1. And the highest body exposure in those categories for the top 10 would be fitness with 6, and there's also a maximum of 12, but there's also a minimum of 0. So what we can see already with the descriptive is that just looking at the top groups, it doesn't seem to be necessary to post nude pictures to be successful, but there are other accounts within those top groups. But of course, we want to use statistics to actually see if there are other things going on and to get deeper into the analysis. And I use panel regression. I use random effects, and we have a between entity error and a within entity error here. And I use random effects because I want to see the difference across entities, so the difference in body exposure, if that has an influence on the dependent variables, so on the revenue, on the success of those stars. And with that model, I can include time and variables, which is body exposure and sex in my case, because I did that just once. All the other data I have more than one observation, right? Because that changes over time in the panel data set. And for body exposure and sex, I have just the time invariant variables, and I'm using those in that random effects model. And also I did a Hausmann test to test between fixed effects and random effects, of course. So the whole model doesn't fit into one slide. That's why I just picked the most important variables here, so body exposure and the percentage of content female and male, and you see the ... It's going on further with the other variables in the set. These are here. I put that down for you. And of course, I have that with me. So if you're interested to see the coefficients, of course, I can show that to you later on, but just that you have an impression on what is going on here. I put the stars next to the variables which are significant in the model, and they're all positively significant, so I don't need to put any sign at that. Multi-homing is not. The number of posts, followers, likes, and comments are, and that's pretty much what is already within a lot of scientific studies, that this is a major driver of income, of course. So the data seems pretty reliable. This L means that it's put in with a time lag because it's correlated with followers. So I put likes and comments in with the time lag. And I also did some robustness checks with multicollinearity to check if that's okay. And it is okay from statistical point of view. Let's talk about the results we are really interested in, and that's the body exposure and female or male content. And what you can see here is that the groups 1 to 12. So 0 is the base group. 0 is no body exposure at all. And compared to the group of 0, all of those with stars are actually positive and better than the group of 0. And the highest coefficient we have with the body exposure of 8, that's actually the highest amount. And interestingly, the percentage of content female and male is not significant, but the coefficient are always higher for the model, and that's the second model with male. The coefficients are always higher for the revenue and the body exposure. So that's an interesting result, whereas the coefficients of content female or male are not significant. Summing up those results, and I just quickly check the clock. Okay. Body exposure has positive effect on Instagram income, but the percentage of female or male content is not significant, and also checked interaction terms between content female, male, and body exposure to see if that together has any effect. But the interaction terms weren't significant. And that's where I was asking myself, is there really no significant difference between female and male content? And that's why I created this subsample. And just a quick reminder of the beginning, 50% or more male or female content with a clear focus on one sex. So I excluded all of those who have mixed content just to see, is there no difference or what is happening? And I just did a small t-test. Is there a difference in nudity between male and female content? And yes, accounts with focus on female content have significantly higher body exposure than accounts with focus on male content, but with a big variance. And then, of course, testing the difference in revenue. Is there a difference in revenue for male and female content? And no, there's no significant difference between those groups in terms of revenue. So answering the research questions, does body exposure drive Instagram success? Yes, to some degree, it actually positively influences advertising revenue if we want to believe the regression model. And is there a difference between male and female content? Body exposure is higher for female accounts, but it does not directly translate into monetary success of advertising revenue. And the sex focus of the content does not have significant influence on advertising revenue according to the regression model. And now I want to quickly reflect those ideas with kind of limitations and also implications. Only advertising revenue is observable. So I just have the advertising revenue and not other sources of revenue, of course, in my model. There might be other sources of revenue, especially for nudity. So I cannot observe if Instagram staffs have a lot of followers on Instagram, but actually earn their money, for example, on OnlyFans. I can't observe that. It's only estimations of revenue. I mean, it's estimations of a company who builds on the whole business model is built around selling that data. So they really try to get good estimations of the cost for their customers, because a HIPSI has to calculate the cost that will be that will happen for the their customers trying to find the right influencer. So it's market-based estimations of the revenue. And I didn't do any pre-selection on sex, but just the top group. I observed the top group, and I didn't do a selection of specific sexes, but that would be an interesting case to really see if I take the comparable numbers, how would that change the results? It's already interesting to see that the top group is a lot of female content. And further analysis on the content type would be interesting, especially the classification of sexual appeals, because now I don't see a difference between, let's say, a sports bra or a really hot bikini, and that doesn't really make a difference in my data. So a question I want to give to end this talk and kind of get into the discussion with you also, because I was wondering that, we were wondering that in our team discussing it. And that's a question, do women need to invest more to earn the same money? Do we have a gender pay gap in social media because women actually have a higher body exposure, but pretty much earn the same amount of money? And I guess there's some spice in here, and the paper isn't finished yet, so I'm very open to your ideas. And yeah, thank you so much for listening.